And action. Okay. All right. So we've got what? We've got the sales price, and this is a very easy question, per unit. We've got the variable cost per unit. We've got the contribution margin per unit, right? Okay. And once you subtract those two, the sales price per unit minus the variable cost per unit gives me contribution margin per unit. And there's my formula again. Guys, if you set it up like this every time, it's not even a formula. It's a way to think about this. Contribution margin per unit times my what? Break-even sales in units, which is what I'm looking for, equals fixed cost. You simply then put in the contribution margin per unit, which we just calculated, times the unknown, the number of units, and that has to equal the fixed cost, which they gave me here. And I go ahead and I take that fixed cost, divide each side by the contribution margin per unit, and that gives me this 3470 break-even units. I mean, come on. This is for babies. Babies do this in their cribs. Huh? And they do, and they go, They get bored. They throw it down and go, ah! Because they've done this too many times. My nephew, when he was little, he's now 38. But he would come up to me with his transformer for me to, I'd look at the thing and go, that's your generation, man. I don't got to deal with that. Okay, so kids are smarter than, so I said, here, work a few accounting problems. Nobody went to college. None of my nieces and nephews, none of them. I had the same speech with every one of them. I said, now you sit in the very front of the class and you listen to everything the teacher said, and you go to college. None of them. Okay, all right, so number 42. You're like, well, then why don't you have some kids? Quit picking on your brother and sister's kids. Okay. All right, so what happens? Mintz Corporation sells a single product for $15 per unit. Last year, the company's sales revenue was $225,000, and the net operating income was $18,000. Its fixed expenses totaled $72,000 for the year. Now, this one takes a little more accounting thinking in that what? If they give me the operating income here of $18,000, and then what? They tell me the fixed cost, then I must have done what? Subtracted the fixed cost off of the contribution margin in order to come up with an $18,000 operating income, right? Okay, so that means my contribution margin was 90. Now I have students say, well, how come they gave us the sales price then if we already have the contribution margin? Well, sales price is relevant in order to figure out the number of units. Okay, so we have what? We have $225,000 and it's what? $15 per unit. So they produced what? 15,000 units. Okay, so once we get the 15,000 units, then we can take that contribution margin, divide it by the units. Bam, we have what? Contribution margin per unit. Right? And once you got the contribution margin per unit, now it's back to our, again, I don't think that bringing in the formula would help you much. You wouldn't be able to do anything in that problem. If you lulled yourself into thinking that all I have to do is memorize a formula and I'm home, that won't do it for you. It's what? That formula was the least of your worries in this question, right? And so then you go ahead and you set that up, contribution margin per unit, times the break-even sales in units, whatever that is, equals fixed cost. I pick up what? I pick up the fixed cost, which I knew to be $72,000. Divide each side by the contribution margin per unit. That gives me break-even of what? 12,000 units? I don't know what they did down here. Never mind. I don't know what that is. Don't look at that. Don't look into the sun. I don't know. Don't ask me to explain the way they do some things. I have no idea. You do it the way I just told you. I don't care how they do it.
It looks so much nicer than theirs.
Aw, thank you. You should say, did you lose weight? I got paid to do it too. Okay. Okay. Question?
The 50,000
Mm-hmm.
thought,
Yeah.
is it 225,000 divided by?
225,000 is the sales. I take the sales price per unit. That gives me the units, right, of 15,000. I'm trying to get the number of units.
Okay.
And then I know the contribution margin, right, is 90. And so if I divide 15,000 by 90, that gives me the $6 contribution margin per unit, right? Once I have that, I'm back to the formula, the logic, which is contribution margin per unit times break-even units, which is what this question was asking me, equals fixed cost. Okay? Okay, good. Let's try another one. Isn't this fun? With the basketball playoffs are coming up, right? So here's what you do. You invite people over to your house, right? For them to say, hey, we're going to watch the basketball game. But get here like a couple hours before the game starts, right? So everybody gets there early thinking, wow, this is going to be a blast, right? And you make them work a few of these break-even questions before the game starts. And nobody can go into the other room to watch the game until they've gotten at least 3 of these right. It's great fun, okay? I used to make people do that at my house when they used to come to my house 30 years ago, okay? And you go ahead and you analyze that for whatever it's worth, okay? So what happens? You sit over here and you come to look at number 62, Wang Corporation, okay? And they give us the sales price per unit, the variable expenses per unit, the fixed costs per month. Really? I mean, really? Who do they think they're playing with? Children here? Contribution margin ratio, therefore, is going to what? They want break-even sales dollars, so we have to use the contribution margin ratio. 100.5 divided by 150 gives me contribution margin ratio of 0.67. 0.67 times the unknown here, break-even sales dollars, divide each side by 0.67, divide your fixed cost by your contribution margin ratio, going to give you this break-even sales in dollars, right? Break-even sales in dollars, contribution margin ratio. Break-even sales in units, contribution margin per unit, right? That's it. That's it. Okay. How about Prior Corporation? Are you bored yet? If you're bored, get used to it. You wanted to be an accountant. Okay. All right, so what happens? You sit here and you have what? You have $230 divided by the variable expenses per unit, $48.30 gives me $181.70 per contribution margin. I take that and I do what? I divide that by 2,000. I don't know what I was doing there. It should be what? 230, the sales price? Okay, that gives me what? 0.79 contribution margin ratio? Contribution margin ratio times break even sales dollars is going to give me, has to equal my fixed cost. I take each side divided by the contribution margin ratio, gives me the break even sales dollars. I don't know what to tell you guys. Same thing over and over again, isn't it? Okay, let's take a look at this one. Is a little bit different, and that now they give me what? A target profit. So all I have to do now is take that target profit and add it to my fixed cost, right? To get the target profit sales. Because my contribution margin first goes to fixed cost and then any profit. So if the question starts calling out and asking you a profit, then just add that on to your fixed cost. Okay? So I take the contribution margin per unit times the, now I'm calling it target profit sales, has to equal my fixed cost plus my target profit. My fixed cost plus my target profit is 400,000. Contribution margin per unit times the target profit units. Divide each side by $130 per unit divided into the fixed cost plus the target profit of 400,000 gives me 3,077 units. All I did was add the target profit, right, to the fixed cost for that one. Because contribution margin first goes to fixed cost, then profit. Blah, 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 blah. Let's do this one, though, 74. Okay. And we have what? Sales price, variable cost, contribution margin per unit. Contribution margin per unit times the break-even sales has to equal, well, this is target profit question. Yeah. I should probably call that not break-even units, but what? TP units. Target profit units. Okay, so I take the contribution margin per unit times the target profit units. The unknown here has to equal the fixed cost of $498,960 plus the target profit of $19,000. That's a total of $517,960. Take both sides and divide it by the $151.20 contribution margin per unit. And that gives me, and when you do the math on that, when you do this math right here, you actually get 3425.6. And I just want to remind you that we always do what? We always round up, don't we? Even if it was like 0.1 or something, we would still round up because you can't sell a fraction of a unit, right? And if you sell less, if you round it down, you wouldn't be breaking even or hitting your target profit because you'd be below that threshold, right? Questions? Requests from this file. Huh? This one right here? The one we just did? If you take, If you take 517,960 and you divide it by the contribution margin per unit of 151.2, then you end up with this number right here, 3425.6. And when they show you the answer, 3425.6. And when they round it up, they just round it up to 3426. And my point was, it doesn't come out that way. But let's say it came out to 3425 just for kicks, 0.1. Well, your instinct is to round down to the 0.5 or 25, right? But that's not correct, because if you're under the number, then you won't hit your target profit. So you go ahead and you round up to that next higher unit, and you'll make a little bit more than your target profit, $1 or more so than your target profit.
You rounded at the answer, not per unit. Just wanted to verify that, because I just thought that we rounded like 152, but then that's
Well, it's 3425.1. You round it up to 3426. Always round up when it goes into that next fraction.
She's asking about the 151.2. Like, so you don't round it up until the end of the answer?
Yeah.
Well, that's not number of units, that's your contribution margin.
Okay, we had the contribution margin ratio we calculated by taking the 240, not contribution margin ratio, but contribution margin. We got it by taking 240 minus 8880 gave us 551.20. There was no rounding there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you round that, you're really going to start hurting.
Yeah.
Don't round that, because that's an exact penny amount. Question?
Can you do Trop Corporation? I don't know if this is on the same file. There's number 8, Trop Corporation.
That's not a problem.
It's not on it? Okay.
Hang on, but hold on to that one. I'm sure we're going to get into that one if you have a question about it.
It's on here. It's on
It is on here?
It's like on the very bottom.
What is it? Trout Corporation?
Trop, T-R-O-P-P.
Ah, yes, it's very last page.
TROPP?
Yeah. Trop. T-R-O-P-P.
This one?
That one.
Okay. All right, so we got this Trop Corporation sells a product for $10 per unit.
Yeah, it's the last page.
To every season, turn, keep turning. Okay. Hello? We're good? Okay. All right. Trop Corporation sells a product for $10 per unit. Fixed expenses are $420,000 per month. The unit variable expenses are 60% of sales price. What would be necessary for Trop to realize a profit of 10% of sales? Oh yeah, I thought I had avoided this one. No, we can do it. I just don't like the question because I always have to think too much. Okay, all right, so what happens? First of all, we know that one... Is there a problem back there? Did we find the spot or not? Okay. So we have what? We have this one. I hate this. I'm going to install the new software after my next class. We have 1 minus 0.6 is the variable cost, and that gives me 0.40 is my contribution margin ratio, right? Okay. Then I have to sit there and I have to say that contribution margin ratio 0.40 is going to be equal to times my what? Times my target profit sales has to equal 420,000 plus 0.10 of my target profit sales, right? Okay. So, how did I do this now? I know I used algebra, but I'm just trying to remember exactly how I did the algebra. Then I have to sit there and I have to say 0.40 times 0.90 of my target profit sales. Right, subtracting 0.1 target profit sales from each side will equal 420,000. I know I'm not doing this right. I always end up having to look at my solution that I wrote on the other page. When I get point, let me see. Let me do this. I can never remember how I did this. I always have to mess with it for a minute. So, let me look at this because I think I put the same question on another one. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to look at it here because every time I got to figure this out and I get tired of figuring it out every time. So then you take 0.4 times your target profit sales equals 420,000 plus 0.10 of the target profit sales, right? Okay, which is what we had set up on that previous page that I'm now doing right here. And then I go ahead and, yeah, the way I did this was I divided each side. The way to do it would be to divide each side by the 0.4 of the target profit sales, right? So I'm dividing each side by 0.4. That means target profit sales is equal to 420,000 plus the 10% of the target profit sales. But then I have to distributive law requires that I distribute that 0.4 to each one of those factors up there. So 0.4 divided into 420,000 is 1,050,000, and 0.4 divided into 0.1 is 0.25 of the target profit sales. So I just distributed that division, that 0.4 to each one of those. Okay, and then I go ahead and I subtracted then the 0.25 from each side. That means that 0.75 target profit sales equals 1,050,000. 1,050,000 divided by the 0.75 gives me, gives me the 1,400,000 answer there. Okay. So yeah, you had to do some algebra, and I always make that same mistake. I always want to subtract the target profit sales from each side before I start doing the division. That's not the way to do it. First, do the division. Divide each side by your contribution margin ratio, and then go ahead and do the math from there. Oh, did I put B? Yeah. Yeah, it's wrong on the other one. This is the correct solution for this. Hello? Yeah. Uh-huh. Distributive law of math. If you divide two numbers in a fraction by 0.4, you have to do it, you have to distribute that division to each one of those. Just like if I was multiplying each side by 0.4, I'd multiply each item by 0.4, right? If I'm dividing by 0.4, then I divide each item by 0.4. 420,000 divided by 0.4 is 1,050,000, right? This is one you can't do in your head. I mean, if you're trying to, live life without a calculator, give it up on this one. You take what? You take 0.10, you divide it by 0.4, that's 0.25. Right? Distributive law of math. Go ahead, check the math, see if it works. You realize I'm not smoking crack before the class, right? I mean, I'm not going to have something like this set up and have it be wrong. Okay? Question? Request? Uh-huh.
What divided target profit sales on both sides?
Why did I multiply the target profit sales on both sides? I'm not understanding that question.
40% times target profit sales equal 420,000.
Is this the time when we ignore her question? There's nothing she could possibly be saying that would be helpful, right? So you should tune it out and talk about something else? I'm sorry? Go ahead. Say what you're saying again. Now you're not going to say what you said again?
Well, I guess, yeah.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to them to tell them to be quiet while you're asking the question.
Okay. So I was saying that 40% times target profit, like the more
Contribution margin ratio is 0.4 times target profit sales has to equal fixed cost.
Yep.
And the problem told us that they wanted the target profit to be 10% of the sales.
Okay.
So it's 10% of whatever the target profit sales is. I have two unknowns here.
Okay.
Or I really have only one unknown, but I know that 10% of the target profit sales, the unknown is my profit that I'm trying to hit. So I just set up my formula here, and then I divide each side by 0.4. I always want to subtract the that 10% over there, but it doesn't work out well if you do it that way. You always have to, the way I should have done it was divide each side by 0.4. When I do, then it's target profit sales divided into the target profit sales equals the fixed cost plus 10% of this sales divided by 0.4. And then the other common mistake is to do the math up here first and then try to divide by 0.4. That doesn't work either. You have to use distributive law of multiplication of division for division here. Divide that by 0.4. Divide that by 0.4.
Yeah, I just understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Subtract 0.1 to the other side. And then it'll make the problem a little easier.
Good. Do it your easier way. Go ahead. Yeah, there should be some space in here.
Because when, like, the numbers in front of a variable,
Just write it out the way you were going to do it. I'm assuming you got to here the same way I
yeah,
did.
yeah, I
Okay, Go
did.
from there then if you're going to show us something.
And then, so I wrote it out like this. And then equals the 4. Can I write over it, or
Just write it under it. Plus what?
plus 0.1 TP?
Okay, so far you're right here, but
I wrote.
I don't know why you had to write again what I just wrote right there. 0.4 times target profit sales equals 440,000 plus 0.0 target profit sales. But okay,
And then if you just subtract,
just go ahead and write in here. Write down in here. Should do it.
if you subtract 0.1 from both sides, then this just becomes 0.3 TP sales. And then you just divide both sides by 0.3, and you get the same answer.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice stuff. Okay. Which I started to do, but something weird happened. I thought I did it before.
And you have to do it just the sales with them. You can make it 0.9 because that's a 0.4.
I didn't forget anything. I got the answer correct doing it this way. But if that's easier for you, and I see that it is easier, I'm just not sure why I didn't just keep going. What did I do before? I had something else over here?
You just try to subtract it right from TP sales, but not with the 0.4.
So 0.10 off of 0.4. I see. It's 0.3. I got it. Okay. 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 Thank you. All right. Question. Request here. Other file. So the answer here is what? So I didn't give you an answer over here, did I? In this file? Why did somebody ask me, so the answer is this, not that?
Oh, because it's on the top. I think it's, yeah, it says answer B.
Okay. I guess that means that one. Okay. Okay, so the answer is C here. Okay, so we're done? Is there a name of the company there? I find it this way. It's a little easier if you search on the company. Spell it for me. Like that?
Star Corporation, number 12.
Okay. Okay, Star Corporation Management budgeted the following amounts. If Star Corporation spends an additional $20,000 on advertising, sales volume should increase by $3,000. What effect will this have? And so you first figure out your contribution margin, okay, which is software, which is sales minus the variable expenses, gives me contribution margin of $25. So I'm going to have an additional contribution margin of $25 per additional unit I'm selling, right? So I sell an additional 3,000 units. That gives me additional contribution margin ratio, additional contribution margin, not ratio, additional contribution margin of 75,000. Less the increase in the fixed expenses, the advertising cost, means my operating income should go up 55,000, right? Huh? Well, you know the sales price, you know how to calculate contribution margin, right? Sales price is 50. Variable cost is 25. That gives me $25 contribution margin, right? We're all in agreement on that? Are we in agreement on that? If we're not in agreement on that, I'm not going to go on. Are we in agreement on that? Okay. Okay, so then we sit here and we sell an additional 3,000 units. So we're increasing our contribution margin by $75,000, aren't we? If we sell an additional 3,000 units. Are we in agreement on that? Okay. But my fixed costs for this advertising are going up 20,000, aren't they? So my actual increase in contribution margin, in profit, is 55,000, right? Because my fixed expenses went up. Series of slides in chapter 5 where those two people are standing next to each other, the guy and the girl. The guy didn't put his briefcase down. The girl did. And they're talking to each other and all these different things. This one's right out of that slot, off of that slide. That if you increase your units through a sales campaign, then you simply take the increase in contribution margin ratio minus the increase in fixed costs for this advertising campaign. Difference is the effect on profit, right? Would you do this?
Yeah.
This looks... Huh? No, would you do this? No. You're in a company. You're working in a company. And the boss says, what do you think? Should we do it?
Yes.
The profit's going up, right? And it looks like it's going up enough that it's worth the risk. I mean, we're going to make almost 3 times more profit than what we're actually risk. What's at risk here, right? There's 20,000 that's at risk. This looks pretty good. My luck, it'll decrease sales. People will hate the advertising campaign. Question? Request?
From there anyway. From there or anything.
Anywhere except the new file, because I want to have a chance to look those over first. But the 2 that I had up there, any of them, yeah. Most of them are marked up. Some of them aren't. Well, while you're looking for that, I'll show you some accountant humor. You ready for some accountant humor? Okay. All right, so you take a look at this one, and they say, using the facts from above, what would be the total sales dollars necessary to achieve a target profit in the domestic division of 73,130? Okay. So if we look back at this domestic division has what? Has sales of 347, variable costs of 72. So we have a contribution margin for the domestic of 274,130. We take the 274,130, divide it by the sales. We get a contribution margin ratio of 0.79, don't we? Yeah. Okay. So you take that contribution margin ratio, 0.79. Notice they have fixed cost of what? 201,000. Okay. So we go ahead and we take this 201,000. Plus the target profit of what? 73,130. What's 201,000 plus 73,130? Huh? 274,130. Okay, and you divide each side by 0.79. What do you get? $347,000, you say? Which is the answer to that question? Ready? Don't laugh too hard. Okay? And then you look back up here at this question and sales of what? 347,000 minus my variable cost gives me contribution margin ratio minus my fixed cost gives me profit of 73,130. Get it? Ha 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 ha! Right? So you go to, you start hanging out at accountant bars, tell that one. See, there's this company, and they have sales of 347,000. Everybody will go, oh, buy that man a drink. Okay? The point of this is what? It works, doesn't it? If you didn't know the sales to reach a target profit of a certain amount, and you were sitting there and you knew what your contribution margin ratio was because you knew your sales price per unit, you knew your variable cost per unit, you knew what your fixed costs are, you could back in to the sales that you need to reach the target profit. It works, doesn't it? And that's the real takeaway here. Now, you look at this company. I erase all this junk? I can't. You look at this company, and you've got two divisions with positive contribution, not contribution margin, but segment margin. So they're both contributing to the profitability of the company, aren't they? Okay. So what happens? They're both contributing to first the fixed cost and then this profitability, the common fixed cost and then this profitability. Their traceable fixed costs are up here, right? We've already dealt with those. And so you come down a little bit more, and I ask you, using the same facts, what would the overall profit loss of the company be if the foreign division were to go away? Well, if the foreign division goes away, then that profit that we had of $38,990 is going to be reduced by what? $39,340, the foreign division's positive segment margin, right? So we would actually do what? Create a profit, turn a profitable company into a loser, right? By getting rid of a profitable segment. This is why we do not allocate common cost. We do not allocate them, because you would do that and it would all of a sudden maybe make this one division look like a loser. Meanwhile, it's contributing to the overall profitability of the company, isn't it? Okay. So don't allocate common costs, you crazy kids. Yeah, I'll stop it. Don't do drugs. No, sorry. I'm just kidding about the part about not doing drugs, but don't allocate those common costs. Oh, now I got this recorded. Cut! Question? 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 Should I spin the wheel, see where it ends up? Number 2? Okay. You want me to spin the wheel on this one? Okay. Moss Feet Shoe Corporation is a single product firm. The company is predicting that price increase next year will not cause unit sales to decrease. So what's going to happen? I'm just going to raise my price, right? And sell more units. So instead of my price being $5, my price is going to be $6. I'm just increasing the price, right? But since my volume is staying exactly the same, my variable cost will still be $3 per unit, right? So if that's the case, the contribution margin per unit will do what? Go up, won't it? And if the contribution margin per unit goes up, now I have more dollars, cents, whatever, per unit going towards first my fixed cost and then my target profit. This one was just asking about break even though, and so what happens? My break even in units will come down, won't it? Because I have more going towards my fixed cost per unit. So the number of units is going to come down. Right? Okay. How about, you think it's a poorly worded question?
Because break-even point doesn't specify units, so just the actual break-even point. I know it's implying units for all of it, but break-even point, we can say how much money it needs is still the same. It's just the number of sales of units that would need to be less.
So you're saying it should have been more specific to say break-even point in units?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. What was the other one? Number 2? If a company increases the sales price by $2 per unit due to an increase in its variable labor cost of $2 per unit, what will happen to the break-even point in units? And so I just went ahead and wrote an example. Sales price goes up $2. Variable cost goes up $2. Contribution margin stays the same, doesn't it? Contribution margin stays the same. Therefore, the break-even in units will not change. Do you want me to ask these kind of questions? Why? Makes your head ache. Okay. Well, I'll have a bottle of Excedrin up here. Tylenol.
Go back to the accounting number 20. I just want to clarify.
A joke's not funny if you have to explain it. Okay, I mean, I'm just teasing you. Hang on.
20 highlighted B, but then you got 8.
Which one?
This one.
Which test here?
It's the other one. It's the first one. Yeah. Number 20. Oh, not this one. You want to do number 21. Oh, I see. I'm confused.
Which one? Which one? What is the break even in sales dollars for the foreign division? You do it. I shouldn't have to do it. Foreign division is what? Sales are 321,000. Let's see. And the break even is the contribution margin is 173. Divided by 321,000 gives me contribution margin ratio of 0.54. The hell did that go now? Oh man, they should not allow them to sell this software the way it works. Which number was it now? Now I've completely lost my spot. I guess it's more towards the bottom of the file, right? Right here, 0.54. Okay, so then you take the 0.54 and you have to look at the fixed expenses. Traceable fixed expenses are what for foreign? 134,000. So you take that 134,000 and you divide it by the contribution margin ratio. We said was how much? 0.54. by 0.54, and you get what? $248,148. Again, we only consider the traceable fixed costs if we're trying to figure out a break even for a particular segment, right? I mean, the non-traceable. No, the traceable. Just the traceable fixed costs, right? Question? Okay, suggest that you go through that 6 and 7 very carefully because we haven't looked much at that stuff, and which is the variable costing part of Chapter 6 and the activity-based costing from Chapter 7. There will be no Chapter 4 things on this test, just Chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to put some new 8 ones up there, so you need to look at the quiz for Chapter 8 that we already did because we don't have much time left, and I want to make sure we cover 6 and 7 because we haven't looked at that for a while. All right, guys. See you Wednesday.